now, your host, Beth Ann.
And I welcome you today to CSC Talk Radio. It is my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to be here with you today. I found something interesting when studying a recent white paper published on the CO2 Coalition website. New Tech, American Coal-Fired Electricity for Africa. Clean air, indoors and out. African lives matter too. Well, we talk about politics every day here. I think sometimes we miss the truth and the substance of the differences in the hearts behind the policies. CSC Talk Radio promotes thinking for yourself. Common sense. I encourage you to not accept all that is thrown at you, all that you hear, but to think about it yourself. Do a little research on your own. Politics, because we talk about them every day, the definition of it is the activities associated with the governance of a country or other areas, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. Politicians making policies, it should be about improving life, not power. We won't talk about the craziness of the U.S. government in the past, which seemed eager to enter into endless wars and conflicts, policing the world. But we were told it was about democracy. Yeah, right. Go back to the white paper. There's a difference in the heart of people, wanting to make life better for others here and abroad, not by force, but by sharing knowledge and technology, providing that path which will allow others to a better, healthier life, and giving them a hand up, not a handout. Whether in the USA or some other land, it is still about life. It's still about liberty, and it's still about the ability to pursue happiness. It's not democracy. Those who claim they're here to save the earth seem to miss the compassion for the earth's people, all people. Reading through this white paper, the passion for mankind was evident. My immediate thought, forgive me for this, was how different this approach is from that of Bernie Sanders promoting the USA pay for all abortions in Africa. A strange comparison, but nonetheless, I found a huge difference in how they wanted to help others. Life is about energy. How important it is to understand that value and importance of coal. It isn't the enemy. Coal isn't the enemy. It's life-saving and life-changing. As I bring on the researchers and authors of this paper, I want you to think about what America is truly about. Freedom. We've had opportunities here because of our free land, and sharing is the right thing to do. The Obama administration banned the U.S. participation and sharing of clean coal projects in Africa. And this white paper is requesting now that President Donald Trump pardon Africa and begin to share and save lives. The principal researchers for the white paper are the Honorable Kathleen Hartnett-White, formerly Texas top pollution regulator as chair of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and Dr. Caleb Stewart Rossiter, formerly a professor of statistics for public policy at the University of the Western Cape, South Africa. Hartnett-White is a senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation and a member of the CO2 Coalition, and Rossiter is the executive director of the CO2 Coalition. At this time, we'd like to welcome both to the show, and we welcome them to CSC Talk Radio, and thank you guys, both of you, for doing the things that you do to bring common sense back into science and for have caring and sharing hearts for others. Caleb, you've been with us before. Welcome back to CSC Talk Radio. How are you doing?
Beth, I am so thrilled to be with you to talk about this important topic, but I wish you would make sure to write down those great remarks describing the situation in Africa and what America can do to help and put them on your website. You should be testifying in front of Congress, not me. That's one of the most heartfelt explanations about the purpose of our foreign policy that I've ever heard. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I got it after looking and reading some of what you and Kathleen had written. I think we've had a little trouble getting hold of Kathleen. I don't know if we have her yet or not. Do we have Kathleen on yet? Okay. We're going to work on that here. She was supposed to call
work
in.
On that, but I'll say, Beth, your listeners are in for a total treat if you do get Ms. Hartnett White on. She's one of my environmental heroes, and one of the things I really wanted to do when I came to the coalition 2 years ago to direct it was to work on this paper with her, because I knew of her interest in what her group, Texas Public Policy Foundation, calls energy poverty. That's really her main focus, both here in America, where a lot of people cannot access our energy because they can't afford to get their heating oil unless, as we know, the fantastic hydraulic fracturing revolution in both gas and oil has brought the price of heating oil down and saved a lot of lives right here in America. But I knew Kathleen always had wanted to work on Africa, so this was a total treat for me.
Well, we'll get her. We're just having a little issue with that, but we will get her, and we'll have her on here pretty soon. So writing this white paper, that had to be quite a project to take on, and I know that both of you are very knowledgeable and have lots of experience in that. But, bringing out what you just said, we even in America have poverty, and we're not just talking about the inner cities that are so impoverished here and are homeless, but in areas in this nation, we have people so impoverished, so poor, that they barely have food, and they don't have heat, and they live in little makeshift shanties that don't have any kind of warmth or cooling or running water, and that's still here in America. And in Africa, go ahead. I'm gonna.
No. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No. I want you to interrupt.
Yeah,
go ahead. I just was making that point.
Yeah, Beth, I was just sort of laughing in that I certainly don't downplay the poverty in America. I've worked both in my life for the Appalachian Regional Commission in some of the poorest areas of Appalachia as a Home Start teacher, going into people's homes when I was a young man to help them read to their 3- and 4-year-olds. So, I've seen people living in burned-out school buses in America, too. However, when I went to work in Africa as a professor, I was exposed to a much deeper level of human need. And when friends of mine would come from South Africa to visit me here, and I would drive them around the toughest ghettos in Washington, D.C., where I was teaching high school. And I'd say, look at these rough streets. And you know what these people from South Africa would see when they'd see how our poorest people live? She looked around
mansions.
They said, well, she looked out at the street. She said, smart car.
We're headed into a break. I'm going to have to hold you right there. You're listening to CSC Talk Radio. We're talking about energy and the importance of coal, and not just here, but everywhere. And in particular, today we're talking about Africa. And you were just telling us, and I apologize. I was into your story, and I wasn't watching the clock very close. And so I want you to finish what you were telling, and then let's go to Africa and explain to our listeners exactly what is going on there.
Thank you, Beth. Yes, I was saying when my friends from South Africa would come here in their little South African accent, they'd look at our tough neighborhoods and say, smart cars, meaning those are great cars these people have. How can they be poor? So in Africa, it is so much behind us in their electricity generation, and of course what that means for in industry and cleaning water and all that an incredible 439,000 people die every year from something called indoor air pollution. Now, your guests may be kind of mystified as to what indoor air pollution could be, because in America, according to the same World Health Organization, 0 people die of indoor air pollution. And what it means is you don't have the money for electricity. Only 1/3 of African homes have electricity coming in because the grid is not well developed, and therefore they have to cook, heat, and light with wood, charcoal, and dried animal dung, which do terrible things to bronchitis and pneumonia rates and kill 439,000 people a year. That's what we're dealing with, the human right to electricity in your home, which America realized in about 1940 universally, and Africa is only at 1/3.
Well, and the fact that they're burning wood and animal dung in the house to heat and to cook. So they're inhaling this. And
yes,
there is no
exactly
ventilation. And so that is really kind of rough on the lungs.
Well, and then you can see that by the rates of death. And so these 439,000 deaths can be brought down with having any kind of electricity in your home, whether or not it's scrubbed of sulfur dioxide, as most plants in America are. But the problem is you don't want to replace that with coal power that starts to cause some outdoor air pollution deaths as well, which is the area that Kathleen Hartnett-White worked in, running Texas's regulatory agency. And the solution is in a marvelous coal plant, a modern coal plant, these new high-tech, what they call them, high-efficiency, low-emissions plants that America developed right before the natural gas revolution made them not too economical here compared to natural gas. Right. But there's one operating that Kathleen visited down in Arkansas that essentially removes all pollutants from the outdoor air pollution. At the same time, would solve the indoor air pollution by giving people electricity to heat, cook, and light their student studies at night.
I don't think most people recognized or even realized that Obama had put this ban on Africa and sharing the coal industry, high-tech coal industry with them. And I know it's all about the evil coal with those on the on this other side of the platform here. But don't we need to kind of look through that? I mean, we have done so much with technology, and we need to look through that and save lives, not take lives, and not jeopardize them just because you don't like coal. We have other things that we can do, but this is the quickest and the easiest and the cleanest that we can offer them to get their lives, get it started where they have hope. They have heat, they have hope.
Yes, just like us, Africa and India and China first turned to coal because it's so easy to bring it from the earth into the power plants and to distribute that electricity. The electricity is reliable and cheap, unlike wind and solar, which require tremendous backup electricity because they go down when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, and you've got to keep the power up. And so Africa, I would say the southern third of the African continent, from South Africa up to about Zambia, is essentially a coal mine. There is so much coal under the ground there that South Africa is able to bring it out and provide energy and electricity that runs north from South Africa through about 12 countries all the way up into the Congo and Kenya. So South Africa can provide this electricity, which explains why, Beth, by the way, South Africa is the only country in Africa where the water can be drunk without people getting sick. It's 100% clean water access because it takes a lot of electricity to run the pumps that cleans water. So that's a huge thing for human health, to have clean water. Otherwise, children get sick much more frequently and die, and you have high infant mortality rates. So everything about human health in Africa would be improved by promoting coal plants. They're going to build them. The plants, everybody knows they're going to build them. And yet China gets to build them now, and they don't do the clean coal technology. They just bring in the cheapest old style. So there's so many reasons why this is insane, what the Obama administration did to our vote at the World Bank, where we provide some money, and our vote on our own U.S. Power Africa program that hamstrings it. Now, parts of Africa, the best thing is new natural gas finds. Other parts, they have big dams, on the Nile River and the Congo River and the Niger River, the Zambezi. But you really have to have a baseload coal-fired plant behind you if you're going to become a modern economy with all the benefits to life expectancy.
So I'm going back to what you said about China. So with us not bringing in the modern technology of clean coal, China's going to come in there and build the dirty coal plants.
They're going to build the old plants.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
so China's going to get the jobs, China's going to get the sales,
yes.
and Africa isn't going to get the best.
It's not going to get the best. But I will say, and to be frank about it, much as we like to invest in America in scrubbing out the last little bit of sulfur dioxide, from our coal plants when they burn, and when we do still have a lot of our electricity driven by coal, there's still no comparison. It's so much better for you to have electricity than not. That even with the pollution from the Chinese plants, it will help. It will help what the Chinese are doing. We could just do it and cover both the indoor and the outdoor air pollution at one time.
I think that's a fantastic idea. Have you had any response yet from President Trump on any of this? Or have
we
you
have issued a call
directly
to President Trump to, the first way I phrased it, Beth, was to say, well, he just pardoned a couple turkeys on Thanksgiving. I think their names were Tom and Tom or something.
corn and cob, I think.
Corn and cob, you are right. And with a very simple executive order, he could reverse the Obama executive order that blocked our exports of this technology, and pardon Africa, just like he pardoned those two good-looking turkeys. He's been a little busy, you may have noticed, focusing on other issues. And unfortunately, we have not seen any motion on this. But we're not giving up. You remember, President Trump ended a Jimmy Carter era ban on the export of natural gas. It was so long ago in the 70s, nobody in government could remember what was the motivation for President Carter to ban exports of natural gas. Things were so different back then. President Trump reversed that, and now, of course, we're exporting natural gas to the world, which is a wonderfully clean fuel. It avoids the problems of sulfur dioxide if you burn gas in a combined cycle plant for electricity right off the bat. So President Trump has done great things for exporting American energy to the world, and we're hopeful.
Well, we'll do what we can. We'll tweet the show out to him. How's that? We'll get that.
I would love that, but the problem is that he can do that.
Read
but obviously, no, he loves that. I mean, President Trump can do it, but let's not forget what's about to happen here. When President Biden takes office, the climate mafia that he is bringing in, the sort of eco-religious fear, they'll wipe this out in a heartbeat.
Yeah, they've already promised. A lot of, we're going to call it, because I'm a good old Baptist girl, we're going to call it backsliding. They're going to do a lot of backsliding on the progress that we've made. I hear the music. We're headed into a break. You're listening to CSC Talk Radio. We're visiting today with CO2 Coalition, Caleb Rossiter, and we're talking about a white paper that he did with the Honorable Kathleen Harnett-White. And it's about providing electricity in Africa for the very poor there in Africa. Even, they have nothing, and they need this. And it would be, if we're talking about clean air, this is what we need to do to give them electricity that they can have a clean life. Let's put it that way, because right now it isn't. And affordable electricity for all there it'd be life-saving as well as life-changing. And so what we're doing is we're encouraging President Donald Trump to take a move on this. As we were going into that break, just before we were, Caleb, we were talking about the changes if the administration switches like it looks like it's going to, and what that's going to mean to our energy here in America as well as abroad. I'm gonna let you talk about that just a little bit, because I think our listeners need to be aware of what might take place here pretty soon.
Thank you, Beth Ann. Obviously, the United States as a federal system has a lot of advantages for energy, meaning the states are very important in our federal system, and most of our electricity and energy production is regulated not by the federal government, but by the states. So effectively, you already have, it's almost, Beth Ann, you mentioned abortion earlier. America pretty much has two abortion regimes, meaning there are a number of states where popular opinion is against abortion, and it's extremely difficult to get abortion in those states. Mississippi, Alabama, Oklahoma. It's extremely difficult. Whereas in states where abortion rights are more popularly supported, it's easy. New York, California, where I live, Washington, D.C. Well, the same thing's happening on energy. The states like California and New York that are controlled by the Democratic Party, and I can rag on them a bit, Beth Ann, because I'm a longstanding Democrat who ran for Congress as a Democrat, and they're strange.
We won't hold that against you.
They're strange narratives about carbon dioxide. They have this narrative, which is that carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuels are causing a climate crisis that's going to threaten the Earth, right? And the second part of the narrative is it's painless to replace those carbon dioxide-oriented fuels like gas and oil and coal with these wind and solar things. Now, the easiest way to deal with that is to explain how wrong the second point is, because nobody wants to pay 4 times as much for their electricity or their automobile fuel, which is what you'd have to do if you use wind and solar power, because they don't work well, they're intermittent, we don't know how to store yet, so they're tremendously expensive. And in the states that I mentioned are a little more conservative on this, it's not a big deal because their state agencies are not penalizing fossil fuels, and they are not giving huge subsidies to wind and solar, driving up your taxes and your rates. But in the rest of America, the California, New York, Democratic America, we've already Europeanized. We've already jammed up the price of power to people dramatically by mandating certain tricks within the regulatory framework in those states that wind and solar electricity get the break, get the lowest bid on the fuel auction, et cetera. There are mandates that you have to have a certain amount of that electricity. Right. And fuel. You may have noticed, Beth Ann, lately that when you buy your gasoline, a certain percentage of it has to be corn ethanol from Iowa.
Yes.
That sort of thing. But in general, because we are a federal system, it's still possible in America to get good, reliable, cheap energy. Those are mostly in the states where the Democrats do not have a monopoly. I guess where this country is going is a big fight in the next administration over mandates, fortunately, probably have to be issued by the executive branch, which can be fought in court, over mandates to, again, favor wind and solar much more than fossil fuel power and make the taxpayer and the ratepayer and the user pick up the pieces. So this frustrates me a bit because the case is so clear on the economics that most people, particularly most Republicans I work with on Capitol Hill, Beth Ann, don't go and ask the next question, which is, goodness gracious, is there even a climate crisis which would be justifying all this? That is the thing that we work on the most in our CO2 Coalition because, frankly, there is no climate crisis. There's been no increase in all these climate variables in the carbon dioxide warming era. It's just a myth, and they dreamed it up and agreed to it at the UN level 20, 30 years ago before there was any data at all. So they're very weak on the science, and so they prefer all the time to brag about how cheap it's going to be to use wind and solar, and they keep forgetting to tell you that it's only cheap because you're paying for it in your subsidies and your mandates. We could become like Germany, where the price of energy is 4 times what it is here, very quickly if the Democrats took over the Congress as well as the executive branch and passed the sort of laws President Obama was trying to pass in his first 2 years in office, which the U.S. Senate, thank goodness, refused to pass. But that fight is going to be a big fight in your lives for the next 15 years, all because they've got the science wrong.
Well, and the wind and solar, and I guess maybe they have their place in time, but they're not even efficient. And they're not, you can't do it everywhere. And it's not efficient, it's not economically efficient, and it just can't be done. And I can't seem to get that through their heads. But it goes back, I think it goes back, Caleb, to the agenda really isn't about saving the planet.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's an anti-capitalist agenda, and I hate to say that, having been a Democrat all my life. There is some strain or germ in this climate change movement, which goes back to the people that thought we were going to have acid rain that would destroy the world, and capitalism will destroy the world, and population will destroy the world, and what was it? DDT. Rachel Carson famously said that would destroy the world. All these predictions, of course, proved to be false because people have been very creative and the science has gotten better. Our air and our water are the cleanest they've ever been. People are living the longest in their life expectancy we've ever lived. And, of course, poor Africa is about 15 years behind us in life expectancy because they don't have electricity. So in the face of the reality that our economic growth is driving environmental success, there is this concerted, almost religious movement saying we're despoiling, ruining the earth, being bad stewards, when the facts simply do not support that.
They don't. And I think I've mentioned it before when you've been on the air, I say it a lot, that what really concerns me is the fears that they've put into people's hearts, and especially our children, our young people who now think that they don't have much of a future and they don't want to have children. I saw one. She just was she had no hope in her whatsoever. I saw her on I think it was Tucker Carlson a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it was sad. It was sad. She just didn't have any hope. I'm not going to have any children, and we've made this decision because we're not going to add to the death of the earth. And it's like, oh my goodness, they've bought these lies, hook, line, and sinker, and they actually don't think they have anything to live for or hope. They don't want to have children. It's so wrong what they have done. And it's all about power. We go back to that party thing about power with the politics, and it's not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about liberty and making people's lives better and easier and, more happy. I hear the music. We're headed into a break. You're listening to CSC Talk Radio. This is Beth Ann. Today's show, and most of the shows during the month, are brought to you by the CO2 Coalition. We appreciate all that they do for truth and understanding in science and common sense. In talking about coal, you and I have a mutual friend. You know C.J. Hadley, don't you?
I do.
With Range Magazine.
Exactly. Yep.
And of course, she grew up in a dirty coal town back in London when she was a young girl, and she talked about the bronchitis that she has from that, or that she used to get. I guess she said she was born with bronchitis, is what she told me, and she did get COVID this year. And she recovered just nicely. She said it wasn't as bad as when she gets bronchitis. So it affects everybody a little differently. But that goes back to that dirty coal days, which we have moved away from here in the United States for sure. And hopefully Europe is doing the same in places. We have the technology to do this and to do it right in every which direction, as far as economics, as far as health. And we can do that, and we can share it with others. I think that's easier to share than trying to fight wars on the ground, boots on the ground for democracy. I think it's better to give them a life of opportunities and health, good health. And so that's what I kind of got out of your white paper. And then you mentioned the Appalachian here in the United States, where we have people that are living very, very poor as well. And what President Trump has done is taken us so much farther, in the energy realm. I mean, we are energy independent for the first time. And I'm worried about us backsliding, as I said, as I went into that commercial break, and getting back to where we're dependent on someone else. And the production and everything stops here in the United States, which means jobs stop, economy stops, more poverty. It's not going to be good if they go that direction once more. We've already seen what it can do, and if they take it farther, how much worse it'll be.
Right. Well, if you want to see the future, go to California, where the lights incredibly are going off just with blackouts, just like they do in African countries every day. They go off at least once a month in California because with their climate change crisis belief, they've force the use of all these renewables and no investment in the grid. So it can happen. It can happen here. You're absolutely right. And I do want to stress that
you mentioned quickly, and it could.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It could. I mean, I do want to stress, certainly government sometimes is irrelevant to all this. Nobody could have kept back the fracking revolution because that was a work of American genius and risk and capitalism that has changed the entire world as much as the Internet. And even in America, we have 11,000 people whose lives are saved every year, according to the National Institutes of Health, because they can afford to use their heating now in cold times, and it reduces their rates of pneumonia and bronchitis. Whereas in Africa, as I mentioned in our new report, over 400,000 people are dying a year from having to burn hard fuels, solid fuels like wood and animal dung in their homes. So there's a long way to go here, but there's a much longer way to go in Africa. And I hope people will, go to our website, get a hold of this report. There's a lot of interesting things to learn at CO2Coalition.org, and we'll see if we can't, be working in partnership with Africa. One of the most profoundly sort of wicked things about Africa's relationship with the world, Beth Ann, is that the European Union, which is the former colonial powers, have not only a great fear of carbon dioxide, which is a miracle molecule, and therefore punish the African countries for emitting carbon dioxide. They have a great fear of what are called genetically modified foods, which the rest of the world understands is the way to control pests and to improve your growing season. You use these brilliant GMOs. But Africa is banned from exporting them to Europe because Europe has got these phobias about things like that. We don't want to be like that. We want to work in alliance with the African governments that want to provide electricity to their people, not block them from the choices they should be free to make.
Well, those are things that we have choices. We have choices here, and they deserve that as well, and they deserve to have a chance to bring themselves up instead of stifling them. Let's open up the markets for them. Let's make things, let's make them healthier. Let's bring them the coal-fired plants that are the healthy-fired plants, and
right.
We'll do what we can here. It's CO2Coalition.org. That's CO2Coalition.org. We have a link on my website for that, and I'm going to post although Facebook doesn't like us, but we're going to post your article on Facebook. They don't like me at all.
Well, what I want you to do is tell us if it gets harmed in any way, because we have won 3 major fights with Facebook in the last year by going back to them with the data when they try to censor us for being climate deniers or something silly, and we will help you. So please post it. You just have to take the time to fight those acts of censorship, which, of course, got more and more egregious during the campaign when President Trump the President of the United States was actually taken offline.
I know. When did we ever think we would see such a time when they would be so disrespectful to that office and ban the president and censor the president just because they don't like what he's saying? They can
as former statistics professor, I don't see it's disrespectful to him as much as disrespectful to Americans. I trained people all my career how to evaluate different claims. That's your business to figure out what's right. You don't need Facebook to tell you something's false. You need Facebook to let people argue in front of you, and you can figure out what's false.
That's a good point, because people don't seem to want to listen to the other side and grow, because we can have different opinions, and maybe both of us have a little bit of right in there and come together with something that's a lot better. We've done that in just about everything here in the United States, and now they're trying to stifle difference of opinions. And isn't that what brings growth? To have a new idea and bring it together?
That's a good point. That's a great point. That's how science actually works. You put your hypothesis up and people test it and give their comments on it, and then you modify it. All that matters are the data. And the data at the moment are saying we have no change in these extreme weather variables during the carbon dioxide era. So everybody calm down and get back to work and making this country wealthier and, as a result, healthier.
You know, I guess they're just going to quit teaching science in school because science is finished. It's a done deal. They don't need it anymore. It's climaxed and it's finished.
But remember, this happens all the time. We have a wonderful senior fellow at the CO2 Coalition, distinguished climatologist named Patrick Michaels, and he's published a book showing that many aspects of science, not just climate change, get taken over and politicized. There's nothing magic about science and politics. You have to stand up for it.